CRO-AM Connections, connecting with Croatian-Americans through conversation and events to share our culture. Today on our show, we have Scott Kuren, current president of St. Lawrence CFU Lodge 13, and owner of Smooth Entertainment from Steelton, Pennsylvania.
Thank you all for joining us today. Dobro nam došli. Today we're having a conversation with Scott Kuren, president of Sveti Lovro, Lodge 13 in Steelton, PA. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to be here. It's great to be back, Scott, in my hometown, Steelton. Lots of great memories here, some that we're obviously not going to share, but we had some good times over the years. I thought it was appropriate because this is our inaugural podcast that we're doing, and it's all about talking about our roots. And so Steelton's my roots, and thank you for letting us do this here and being our first guest on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're extremely happy that you're here and happy that we can support this venture.
Appreciate it, Scott. Okay, there's three parts to our podcast. The first is talking about your Croatian roots, your heritage, family heritage, and wherever we want to go with that. Some people know more, some people know less, and that's okay. The second part is your time in CFU and your ascension into the presidency here, and also, if we can, a little bit about Smooth Entertainment. I know you got a lot going on there, and I want to delve into that a little bit if we have some time. And then last is just wrapping up what your future ventures are here in the for the lodge, but also personally, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Smooth Entertainment. And I know we're coming off a really successful St. Lawrence Day, as you guys usually do, so we can talk a little bit about that as well. So,
awesome.
So let's get right into it. What's your family heritage? What's your roots?
Well, similar to you, Marty, roots obviously start here in Steelton.
Yep.
And, you know, Steelton, just such a proud Croatian community.
Yeah.
So my great-grandfather came here from Croatia. And one of the things I think that was really cool and keeps us all here in Steelton very connected was his church.
Yeah.
So my family went to St. Mary's Croatian Catholic Church and really heavily involved with that as a kid. And when I was raised with just my mother and my grandfather. Yeah. And obviously my grandfather speaking Croatian and keeping us connected to the church.
Nice. I didn't know that. I didn't know he spoke Croatian.
Yeah. No, you know, probably not as fluent as, you know, as I think during that generation, a lot of people were trying to assimilate to America. So they lose a little bit of the language. And, you know, my mother, she's not fluent in Croatian, and my uncles, but they know the words and can speak the language and understand some things. But I think at that time, what I was told by my mom and grandfather that, you know, hey, speak American. You're here in America.
We all went through that. Yeah.
So that's kind of how that. But for me, you know, when I was younger and I was really connected with my grandfather, who kept us involved with the church. And then, I don't know, when I was a young kid, my mom made a decision to put me into St. Mary's Croatian Catholic School. So I started, attending there in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And that was really then, I think, where my ongoing connection with the Croatian culture really blossomed. So, you know, you understand those things when you're little and the traditional stuff around Christmas time and all that. But I think that's really when it started to, you know, for me, take hold and have me understand where we're from and understand a lot more about my heritage. So I think people are aware that we have Cola Club in St. Mary's.
Cola Club Marian,
So we're all part of that.
Full transparency. I know Scott for like a lot of years since he was tall, right? So yeah, we danced together.
I was just going to say, we have a lot of pictures of you and I together in Cola Club. So that was really, I think, for me, a big part of of everything. Getting connected and learning the traditional dances, the language, and then you're just a part of it, and then it just seems like this is what you do every year. You have a May show, and now, and I think just being part of that school was helping with my Croatian connection as well. So I mean, that growing up from 4th grade, all the way to college, that was really just prevalent for me. And that really helped me. And one of the things that's very interesting, so my older brother, who's very connected to his Croatian culture as well, but he didn't have that experience. So his connection, I think, blossomed probably a little bit later because it was a little different for us.
Now, do you think you helped him with that because you were a little bit more engrossed in it, or he just had a different time?
Yeah, just different time, probably. Yeah. Just different time, and so coming through that, the church and Cola Club and being so actively involved. But then I moved away. After college, I moved to Texas, to Illinois, and I moved around a little bit. So I lost a little bit of that connection. So, when you grow up and you're hearing the songs and you can speak the language a little bit, but then you move away and you don't do it anymore. So I think that happens a lot for people around Steelton who are, 2nd, 3rd generation. But for me then, it was really cool, and this gets a little bit into some of the things you wanted to talk about with the lodge. When I moved back to Steelton, which was in 2000, came down to St. Lawrence, have a beer, and see what's going on in our local Croatian club, as we did when we were, younger. That's what we did. So, and just said, hey, I want to see things move in a different direction around here. So that's sort of when I started with the club. But my family, you asked about my heritage. We're from Zagorje.
Okay, which I was going to ask you whether you knew.
So when we go back, actually when Muddy and I, my wife, and I got married in 2006, that was the first opportunity I had to go back to Croatia. And one of the things that I think it was really extremely pivotal in my life, brought me to tears. It was really cool. So, a lot of us here, I think in Steelton, like you hear about your heritage and kind of know, okay, I'm Croatian, but you never really know. You can never feel it because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to go back. So when we went back in 2006, I did some research, and people at the church helped, give me an idea where I needed to look.
The church here or the church over in?
Well, both, actually. Okay. So that's a great question. So the church here, St. Mary's, was the first opportunity I could look. Rick Vukmanik was able to help me find out exactly like what region, I think based on some birth records of my grandfather and things like that, that were listed of his parents.
Yeah, Rick Vukmanik was one of the directors of Kolikva Marijan, still is, and very, very active in St. Mary's Church.
Yeah, very active in the Croatian culture at Steelton. So that was really helpful, and went back. And one of the cool things, so we went to the town, which is Gornja Stubica, and met the priest. And, you walk into the room, and the priest, he didn't get on the internet. He didn't open up his computer.
It was the book.
It was a huge book that, looked like the Old Testament or something. It was really cool. So he pulls his book out and, goes to my family name. He's like, oh, yeah, Kuren. Okay. Here. And, I mean, he told me everything. He's like, your great-grandfather Tomo came here. They left. Your relatives live here. They have a house. It was just like overwhelming. I get goosebumps thinking about it now. But it was just so cool to finally like make that connection. So, when you come back to Steelton, then you just feel more connected to that side of your life. So that was really neat, and was able to share that obviously with my wife, which was real cool.
Were you able to find any family on that trip? Did you go to?
We did. So one of the things, again, just I think speaks volumes about the connection and everything is we had the opportunity then to go so we did that early in a part of our trip, and then the priest said, well, listen, I'm going to make these connections for you. I know you're going in other areas, because we went down to see Marija's family, and we came back up to Zagreb, and then went out to Zagorje again, and he had a whole lunch set up for us. Cousins, relatives were there, so I was able to start to forge some of those connections, and then I maintained those relationships over still today. One of the individuals, Zvonko that I made a good connection with. Unfortunately, he passed away about 3 years ago due to cancer. So that was a little bit of a blow because he was the one that I stayed at his house. I knew his family, his kids. So I have to kind of reignite some of those other connections within the family. But it's neat, So now, when we were just there recently, a couple weeks ago, we took the kids,
for
to
the big festival.
To the festival. We were at for the CFU festival. But as Maria's parents still have a house there, so we're able to go there. But then it was kind of neat for me. I was able to take my kids over to like the church, the graveyard, and I think one of the other things that's just again makes you feel so connected. When you go to the graveyard and you see your family name, those kind of little nuances again really continue to burn that pride, I would say, and being proud of where you're from.
And most of the markers have pictures. Some have pictures, so you get to see actually what they look like.
It's pretty cool. So that was neat. But that's where my family's from, and that's kind of the things that I'm trying to perpetuate here in our community, and also too with my kids. I have 4 kids, so that's a big part of my life. And I think I married a Croatian woman who's first generation. So I'm fortunate enough to really have Maria speaks to our kids in Croatian, which helps me with continuing to learn the language better and speak better. So those things are really cool and they're really prevalent in our family.
Some of the things we look back on, wish we would have done a little bit more. Try to learn the language and speak. I know personally, I could have done better, but we were young, right? We didn't know. And I think through social media, you talked about connecting with family, like WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. It's a lot easier nowadays to, once you make those connections, to stay connected on, through those social media platforms.
Absolutely. One thing was cool too, it's kind of a cool family story. So when the CFU, as they traveled for festivals back to Croatia, back in 1986, we were slated to go to Croatia, my mom, myself, and my grandfather, and I think that was like right around the Iran deal or something was going on, and my mom pulled myself and her off the trip, but my grandfather still went. And the neat thing was, and it's like life coming full circle, at that time, Maria, her dad, helped out my grandfather kind of research and find some of his roots.
Oh, really?
So one of the really cool things was when I went in 2006, I ended up meeting the cab driver that drove my grandfather around. So it was like, whoa, I remember your grandfather, I took him over to his family. So that was sort of neat, like never realized that I would marry Maria, and that her dad was instrumental in trying to help, connect my family to the troops in Croatia. So it's cool stuff.
It's a funny world, small world, right? How things work. So.
Yes. And speaking of pictures, one of the things that's really neat too is I have all these old pictures now when we were in Tambora here in St. Lawrence with Maria sitting in the front because she's younger than we are. So it's kind of neat too. You look back and like, oh my God, our kids really think it's cool. Seeing me in the group and then seeing her sit down in front of us.
And I think we're going to have to share some of those pics, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll
Absolutely.
put them up in the podcast here. So that's awesome. That's a really great family story. And I know we're going to talk about the lodge and your guys' trip back to Croatia, but are you trying to get back every year or just because of the festivals or?
So, as I mentioned, going back is really important to our family, especially my wife, and that's one of the things I think when we were looking at, when we were getting together, I knew that was really important for her. And it's gained its importance for me as well, to keep those connections. So we try to get on a schedule where we're like every 4 to 5 years, depending on what's going on. But we've been able to keep that, since 2006. I think we were there in 2012, 2018, and then Maria went in 2019 for Advent, and then COVID hit, so that kind of pushed things back a little bit. But then we were fortunate enough to go this year because the CFU held its festival there. So that was a nice opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You can go for the festival and then make a vacation out of it.
Yeah,
So
nice.
we'll probably continue on that path, maybe every 3 years, 5 years, kind of when it works out.
Yeah. Understood.
And also too, with Maria's sister and her family, it's always nice to try to coordinate when they're going so that everybody can be there together.
Yeah, a little reunion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice in the home country. Okay, so St. Lawrence. I never thought President Kuren.
Yeah.
St. Lawrence Lodge 13. So congrats to you. There's been a lot of great presidents, past presidents before you, but we've seen a resurgence here. I mean, there's a lot of activity, whether it's through events or social awareness on the platform out there. And so talk a little bit about your journey to the presidency and what you've been doing here. A lot of great stuff happening here.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier, so when I moved back to Steelton, obviously, connecting back down here at the club, you come back and you want to get a beer, and it just, at that point, it felt like the club was a little bit going in a different direction.
Yeah.
So at the time, my sister, who's my sister-in-law now, I reached out and connected with her. Maria and I weren't married yet, but we were, dating a little bit, and a good friend of mine, Andy Marinac.
Yeah.
He and I were, we were both single at the time, so we were down here a little bit more frequently. And like I said, we just felt the club was going a little bit in a different direction. It seemed like it was pulling away from the Croatian connections a little bit, and we would come down and, kind of people do. We have comments and, oh man, I wish this, I wish that. And we both said, well, look, we don't want to be a part of the problem. Let's be part of the solution.
Nice. Yeah.
So, got a little bit more active in the board and ran for an office and got elected actually as a board of trustees first.
Really?
Yeah, so I got appointed to the board of trustees, and then probably a year went by, and the individuals that were the president, and they were older, and they wanted to kind of move on, and felt like, hey, we got some younger people now. So that's when I kind of stepped into the president role, and I think it's kind of crazy, but I think that was almost 20 years ago now that I was involved with that and assumed that role. So then, Andy and Monda, and we started looking on how to move the organization in a better direction. And again, there was financial concerns. There actually was the potential to close the doors. We had some really outstanding debt, and no fault to any of the people that were there before. It's just, it's hard to keep these type of organizations going. So there's a lot of details there, but the reality was we knew we needed to make some decisions. We needed to move in a different direction. And then we started that journey, and we were fortunate enough to get a really good manager, Ivica Harabic.
Yeah, Ivica.
I think everybody knows Ivica. Who's actually living in Croatia now. He
saw a little story on him on, I think, Facebook about his family. Yeah, we'll get to Ivica. Later podcast maybe.
So we were fortunate that he was willing to take on that responsibility. So he started in that role, and then eventually that role transitioned to my brother-in-laws. Mata and Peta, and they've been the manager, I bet you, maybe 15 years.
Wow.
If maybe even a little bit more, but it's been a long time. And I think that's really the key to these type of organizations. It's just really good leadership. You have to have people that are making decisions that are in the best interest of the lodge. And one of the things that I think we have a really shared perspective down here is that we understand the sole purpose is really to promote and continue the Croatian heritage in our town of Steelton. We're very fortunate. We're a small community, but when we look and travel around to other places like New York, Chicago, these bigger cities, you really pat yourself on the back because we have something really cool here. We're a small community, but we're a really proud community, Croatian community. So that's kind of how it started, and then I got more active in the club, and as we got out of debt, we started making really good financial decisions. We started doing fundraising, and honestly, we rallied the community. we really needed to have them support us. The reality is these organizations can't survive if we don't have people having a drink every now and again, coming, and we need their patronage. So those type of things, we started rallying the community. I got to give a lot of credit to my buddy Andy, because he made a decision like, hey, let's bring back the fish fries. Everybody likes a good fish fry during Lent. And that now we do upwards of 350 dinners on a Friday during Lent. So it's just amazing how that's continued, and that's almost 20 years now we've been doing the fish fries. So it takes a lot of people supporting, coming out, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes as well. Not only myself, but we have an amazing board. Robert Spanler, Donna Spanler, Mike Bresky. We have tons of people that are involved, and we've been fortunate to been guided by some people who've been here for a long time, like Virgie Mikdish.
Everybody, Virgie Mikdish. We have to give a shout out to Virgie Mikdish.
Absolutely.
I saw the sign of Virgie's Kitchen over there.
We kind of did a presentation a few years ago for that. But we're lucky that people like Virgie that stayed connected and helped guide us. Give us, hey, this is how it was, and these are the things that you need to maintain and keep going. So, I've been really fortunate that we're surrounded by a bunch of good people that have the similar idea that we need to keep this going. But
hats off to you, because Steelton's, it's like all the other small steel towns that, things died, right? And so it takes the youth to come back to bring something back to say, we want to keep this, that heart and soul of what it is, we are the community. And so hats off to you guys and your entire team for doing that. It's pretty amazing what you guys have done today. So congrats.
It does. I think you're always trying to keep that connection, because you're right. We have individuals that are second, third, fourth, fifth generation, sixth. And you have to somehow give them something to stay connected to. So we're always looking for ways to do that. I think that's key.
And you guys just had another successful St. Lawrence Day. You guys do it upright. You do the lamb. You go down, pray down 2nd Street to the church, and you come back for a festive night. So is it always on St. Lawrence Day, or you try to do it on a weekend to have a crowd? How do you guys manage that, and how do you pull that event off so successfully every year?
Absolutely. So we used to do it on St. Lawrence Day, but then there's also another big activity. The St. Mary's Preservation Society has a picnic every year. So we were approached by them a number of years ago, and it really was around shared cost for bands. So it was sort of like, hey, they're spending a lot of money bringing in a really good tumbada band. Do you guys want to partner with us and maybe have that tumbada band at St. Lawrence that Saturday night for St. Lawrence Day? So again, it was us, trying to do things smarter together to unite these communities. So that's how we started to shift a little bit of not doing it on St. Lawrence. I think it's August 10th. So we transitioned a bit to that first weekend of August, and we try to stick with the traditions. We roast the lamb. We honor our 50-year members on that day. So we have our, try to reconnect with our older members. We bring them back. This year we were fortunate to have the president of the CFU national organization, Ed Pezo. He's a big supporter of ours. And I was actually, I don't know if you know this, but I was on the national board of directors.
I did not.
For the CFU for 2 terms. I had to end my 2nd term a little early just because 4 kids and
got a lot going on.
So it's I knew I couldn't fulfill that to the best of my ability. So I unfortunately had to pull away a little bit. But still a really proud moment for me to be a part of that higher level organizational needs.
And just I want to make one tie, like you mentioned the tie between St. Mary's and St. Lawrence, and I think St. Lawrence started back in like 1895, something like that, and I think those same group of gentlemen actually started or wanted to have a Croatian church community in here, so there was that tie back there too. So
absolutely, we just we had to postpone a little bit. We were really looking to do a big 125-year celebration here at St. Lawrence. And again, COVID kind of, we had to postpone a bit. So we're still planning to do something just so we can recognize that milestone for us here.
Yeah, great. So if we can, talk a little bit about Smooth Entertainment.
Yeah, sure.
You did some pretty interesting stuff over, I think you called it quarantines over the COVID periods to keep people engaged. And I think you were sharing earlier that you got a little bit of a shout out when you were traveling in Croatia. Talk to us a little bit, indulge us about Smooth Entertainment, what you're doing there, and then the Quarantines. That's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Quarantinis.
Quarantinis, right. So I've been a DJ ever since high school. I love music, you know. I was, like I mentioned, I played tumbada when I was a kid. But growing up, you get into hip hop music, whatever it is, and I just kind of gravitated toward the DJ concept. So I used to do it a little bit, in nightclubs, things like that, and then as I got older, eventually turned it into a little bit of a business. Started doing weddings and parties, and
which you did ours, Heather's and mine. You did our wedding.
That's right. And that's interesting, like as I start to look back, there's so many people that I have done their weddings, which is kind of neat. And it tied in really now, which is really cool, is there's so many Croatian people in Steelton that when they get married, they want a little bit of Croatian music. So I'm sort of like, I guess, a good pick because I can do a little bit of everything.
That's right.
So that makes it nice. But yeah, so I have a DJ business that I've operated now for many years, and COVID hit, and we were all kind of going, oh, now what are we going to do? Because I was doing, pretty regular spots on Friday evenings, and now this was just American music. So we were, talking, and I said, well, let me see what's up with this Zoom idea. So long story short, I started sending out Zoom links through Facebook and said, hey, let's get together, and ended up coining the term Croatinis because everybody had to quarantine. You couldn't go out. So I would actually host a Zoom link. I would send it out, and we had over 150 people jump in at different times. And it was, people still talk about it today. It was so cool to get on, and people started really, grasping on to the idea of Zoom and sharing different backgrounds. It was really neat. We had some really good friends from Pittsburgh that would share a background, and it looked like they were actually in the club in St. Lawrence. So because the club was shut down, nobody could go down there. But then you could see this individual with on Zoom with in the background, like, how are you at the club? So it was just a really neat way to stay connected. And what I would do is I would essentially host it, and I would just play Croatian music. I would talk a little bit, and we got to the point we were even doing some really cool things, like we were, with these lodges, you have a daily book drawing. So we would say, okay, anybody want to sign the book virtually? People would Venmo me money, and then we'd have we'd pull somebody's number, somebody's name, and that person, I'd Venmo them back. They won the book that night. So
did they have to be on the Zoom?
They had, yes, you had to be
so
present.
It's like being in the club, right?
That's right. That's right. You had to be present in the Zoom to collect. So we started doing that, and I think it ran for almost 10 weeks.
Wow.
Which was really cool. And at the end, we even did Crotini Awards. I gave out some awards. It turned into a whole thing where, a big shout out to my mom. She actually would even jump in, and she started doing some writing for me. Yeah, she would research and give me questions of trivia questions to ask online.
Nice.
So we did that. And then I got to give another shout out to obviously my good friends from Kochberg. Marlene and Danny, they performed. We had a live performance at the Crow-Quarantini. And then I even, the festival, the adult festival for CFU, because of COVID, couldn't happen. I hosted a Crow-Tini version of the festival.
Really?
Yeah, I partnered with Derek at CFU.
Derek Hahn.
Derek Hahn, who's involved in other programs. and we put it together, and we ended up hosting that. So it was neat. It was again another way just to stay connected with people. And like I said, you mentioned I was in Croatia, and we were partnering with Kochberg on their trip to Vukovar, and the lady come up and she said, "Oh, there you are, Djsmooth. I love the Quarantini." So it's like, all these years removed, probably now 4 or 5 years. So yeah, it's cool stuff.
Nice. And you're expanding. You got a couple DJs now. You're continuing to grow Smooth Entertainment, right?
So yeah, it is. We're definitely. I was fortunate enough to have somebody that I'm friends with, Steve Usick, who loves music. He's dear friend. Actually, it's kind of cool.
Another good Steelton boy. Right?
Another good Steelton boy, and Croatian in his own right. His mother was the Kumovi for my mom. So it was like kind of a family connection as well. Like you said earlier, everything's connected somehow or another. So yeah, he's doing some work for me, and I got to the point a number of years ago where I thought I got to either move in one direction or the next. I need to kind of pull back, or I need to ramp it up. So I actually ramped it up and doing more weddings now, more parties, things like that. Got some really good school connections. So we do proms. I know you're a McDevitt guy. We're very connected with McDevitt. We've done their prom the last 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, Steve has fostered that connection as well because his wife is a McDevitt grad, Patty.
She's an alum, Patty, She was a great soccer player in her time, or no, basketball player in her time. Sorry, Patty.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's pretty neat. Well, last part, coming attractions. Like personally, what do you see on the horizon for the lodge? What do you see on the horizon? Future events or different things you might be thinking about doing?
So one of the things we kind of have our standard every year. So we always have St. Lawrence Day is big for us, and then we always have a really big Christmas party. So those are for us at the lodge really two big events other than the fish fry. Now, as I mentioned with our fish fries, we are a little bit different because we have entertainment. So every Friday during Lent, not only do we have amazing food, but we have great entertainment. So we bring in bands. So that's that covers our springtime events. Summer's always a little bit slower. People are traveling, so not as many events. And then we have our St. Lawrence Day towards the end of the summer, and then Christmas. We have a big Christmas event. But all throughout, we have other events. I know our adult Tumada group is hosting a dance in October. So that we have some guest groups coming in from Canada. So that's kind of cool. And then we'll have a band night. I think the other big thing that we're doing is hosting our 50-year members for CFU. So what happened, just need to explain a little bit. CFU at the most recent convention changed their requirements for 50-year members. So it used to be that once you leave the nest, then that's kind of when the clock started ticking. So most 50-year members were in their 70s. So now they changed that so that time of being in the nest actually counted. So we have a big bucket of 50-year members that we wanted to acknowledge. So we reached out to them with a letter, and we're going to have a really nice event for those 50-year members, and I think that's going to be in September. So that'll be really cool. We have my brother-in-law's, which is probably one of the best Tumada bands around, Zadnja Stanica, is going to play for us. So it's really hard to track them down as they're really popular. They're always playing.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to get them on a podcast too, right?
Well, I mean,
geez, come on. Besides Zadnja Stanica, we need you, man.
That's right. Besides being my brother-in-laws, I mean, the band is just amazing. So
they are. They're real good.
And similar to my DJ work, I got actually a really cool story to share about this. So I was working when I moved back to this area. I was working at the local school district where we all went to school, Steelton High Spark School District. And my brother-in-laws were in school at that time.
Really?
Yeah, so obviously, made the connection, and started talking to her dad a little bit more. And, as they got a little bit older, and I think they may have been seniors in high school, they started this band. Them two and Stevie Gracia, another good Steelton guy. And they started, hey, let's go out and play. So their first gig was at the Steelworkers. in Steelton, Steelworkers Bar. And at that time, I was engaged to someone else. And, I said, hey, let's go down and hear this band because I want them to play at my wedding. So it's just really bizarre, but it's very true. I was sitting at the table with my fiance at the time, with my now in-laws, Friday and Kata. I was sitting with them listening to the Kirks play. Obviously, that relationship didn't work out. Long story short, Zuddy Stunita is now one of the best bands around, and I heard their first gig.
All thanks to you.
Oh, right. So it was kind of cool when we, my wife and I, Maria, we share that story. It's kind of neat because she was there that night as well. Yeah. So I was previewing them to play at my wedding, and now I'm part of their family. So it's really
pretty cool. Like we said before, the world works in mysterious ways. You don't know where you're going to land, but no, that's.
So we again back to the events. We we have stuff popping up all the time. I think, as I mentioned earlier too, we try to stay fresh. We always try to stay connected to the pulse of the community. Trying different things. Some things work, some things don't. But I think when you come stagnant and just complacent, that's when things tend to go in a different direction. So we're very fortunate that we have lodge meetings, and there's times when the group disagrees, but that disagreement leads us to a good place. And I mentioned earlier, I think all of us have the same purpose. So even though we may have a different idea, it doesn't always mesh. In the end, we know we're moving the ship in the right direction. We're keeping the Croatian community connected, alive. We try to do as many things we can with other organizations. We have a pretty active Facebook page, so you can certainly check us out on Facebook. My wife actually sends out a email newsletter at times as well. It highlights all of our events. We're always trying to do something.
Pretty cool. And the Facebook is at CFU Lodge 13. Is that how they find you guys?
I think that's it.
CFU Lodge 13.
Yeah, okay. St. Lawrence. It might be St. Lawrence Lodge 13.
Okay. And then geographically, Smooth Entertainment. Are you to PA? Do you guys travel? Just curious of your.
So, pretty much anything in Central PA.
Central PA.
I've been recently doing a lot of jobs in the Philly area. I also have a connection with a DJ company in Maryland. So I travel. I have 2 jobs coming up in the Frederick, Maryland area. So I try to stay within 2 hours driving distance. I know we talked a little bit off before the podcast about a really cool event we did in New York at the Croatian church. So my brother-in-law, Zuddy Stunita and Djsmooth, did a 2-night event up there. Probably close to 1,000 kids.
Wow.
It was really cool at the church. It was a Friday and Saturday. So that was neat. So I've done jobs there. Out in Pittsburgh, I was fortunate enough to go out to Javor and do a couple evenings there. So hopefully they'll have me back. Javor, bring me back.
Come on, Smooth Entertainment, bring it back.
So get out to the Pittsburgh area. But those are special. Most of my work is within an hour of Central PA.
Yeah, cool. Well, Scott, I really, really want to thank you for being on our show today, having this conversation. You get some great stories, some great family heritage there. This has been great overall, so thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. I mean, again, these are the type of things that we need to continue to support, so I appreciate your efforts. We all know these things take time and energy, so, applaud you for doing that, and hopefully, after your 100th podcast, maybe I'll come back again.
We're definitely going to have you back. It's been a great day. So to all of our CRO-AM followers, as always, just want to say thank you. Buona fala to everyone for listening, and to Filthy 46 Productions for all their editing and production expertise. So until next time, Živjeli Hrvati, puno fala, veliki poz I Bog. Catch our next episode where we sit down for a conversation with Derek Hahn. He is the Director of Fraternal Programs at the Croatian-Fraternal Union of America and the Vice President of St. George Lodge 354 in Cokeburg, Pennsylvania. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple, and other podcast platforms. along with watching us on our YouTube channel or following us on Facebook and Instagram at CRO-AM Connections. Thanks and appreciation to Scott Kuren for being our guest, St. Lawrence Lodge, Smooth Entertainment, Filthy 46 Productions, and as always, our CRO-AM followers.
Follow.